Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided I was going to take you along while I make my dressing that I make every major holiday. This one's as close to my grandmother's as I could possibly get. She's no longer with us, so I don't know the recipe for that, and a lot of times she didn't have a recipe. So this one's pretty close. Most of my children do not like dressing, but they will eat mine. This is a little bit too much vegetable, but I just went ahead and cut up a whole onion and a couple stalks of celery. And right now I'm softening them in some butter. What you're going to do is when you add this to your cornbread, you're not going to drain it or anything like that. You need butter, not margarine, not oil. So you need you some unsalted butter, not a full stick, probably about 5 tablespoons of butter. But you could literally do a little bit less or a tad bit more, it's not going to matter. I wouldn't do a whole stick. And I'm just going to sit here and cook these until they are soft and translucent, so we don't have any crunch going on while we have our dressing. You need to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees and go ahead and get you like about a 9x13 pan ready. I do spray mine with oil or cooking spray. And typically, a good tip, here's my cornbread. I cook my cornbread a day or two before, and I let it sit out overnight so that it can dry out as much as possible. If you can't, that's okay too. It's just going to make it a little bit more moisture, and I don't really like that. I like it more dry. Not like stuffing, but there's a little bit of a difference. So if you've ever can experiment with that, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I've already made me a pan of cornbread. It's just one pan. My pan of cornbread. This is my cornbread pan right here that I'm actually cooking in. It's about that big, and I usually fill it up. So it's about that size, about a 9-inch pan, and it's about what, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches deep. Just regular cornbread recipe. Nothing with sugar in it. This has got cornmeal, oil, an egg, and some milk, and that's it. And I use cornmeal mix, not yellow cornmeal. So it's self-rising. I don't have to worry about anything like that. Okay, so let me get this done, and then I will take you along for the next couple of steps. Okay, y'all, so I cooked these until just about translucent. They were real tender to cut with my spatula. So I moved them now to my bowl with my crumbled cornbread. The way I make the dressing, you don't have to worry too much about it being cut perfectly into little squares and all that. I just broke it up. Some of the pieces are huge, some of them aren't. Some of them have already went to crumbs. The way it's made here in Alabama, it doesn't, this liquid that I'm going to pour in the broth is going to change it anyway, so it's not going to be a big deal at all. So I put poultry seasoning in mine, and I also put sage. I put more poultry seasoning than sage. I'm going to try to put the recipe down below. It's a recipe that I've used for years and years, and it'll have all the measurements. I kind of eyeball it and just go with it. The broth that I have, you can use store-bought broth. This is just broth that I saved from cooking chicken over the past couple of weeks, and I just freeze it, and then when I need it, I just deep thaw it and use it. But I also have bouillon that I use a lot in a lot of my recipes, so I always have that on hand, and that's usually what I use if I don't have any broth saved. But if you don't have time and you want to use boxed broth or canned broth, you can do that as well. I will tell you that I cannot remember the name of it. The chicken bouillon that's by Weidler's, that's not the plain chicken one. I think it's something herbs. I can't remember the name of it. That is the best one to use for this dressing. It just gives it an extra flavor that's really, really good. And I have tested it with that type and plain, and there's a definite difference. So, but if you can't, and you know, I don't always do that. So, that's just a thought. So the trick to my dressing is use more poultry seasoning than sage. I'll do about half as a ratio, like a half of the sage versus the poultry seasoning. And then if I have to add anything extra, I usually add more poultry seasoning. You will also put salt and pepper in this, and you can do that to taste. But I do, in the recipe, actually have the measurements, so you'll know what to do. Be careful with your salt, because your broth is going to be salted unless you get low sodium. So just be careful. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding this broth. I may have to make up more. I don't even know if this is going to be enough. We'll see. I usually need about 3 cups worth. And this I don't think is quite that much. I've used all of it. Yeah, I think I'm going to need at least another cup's worth. Alright, and as I stir, I try to take the crunchy parts of the cornbread and kind of mush that in. Alright, I do like to have just a little bit extra liquid. Okay, so the main thing you need to do is find a balance between the moisture versus the dryness and all that. If you do too much moisture, it's going to be cake-like. If you do too little, it's going to be crumbly like stuffing, and that's not what you want with a southern dressing. You just don't. So I know from doing this all the time that I need just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing broth, because that broth that I made was pretty good and seasoned, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And I could have added it to my actual broth, but it's about the same. So I just need just a little bit more liquid. And it's still flavored just like it was. There. Just a little bit. So see how it's soupy? Let me make sure y'all can see. It's soupy, but it's not too soupy. You can still see the cornbread. The cornbread is also very crunchy. So that's good because that's going to help, you know, it's going to soak up any excess liquid. Okay, so right now, I'm going to try a piece and see if my seasonings are perfect. And they're not quite there. Touch of sage, which I typically don't do. Just a touch. Like I said below, the directions will be below, so don't freak out. Okay. And it's definitely gonna need some more pepper and a touch salt. Okay. Now, for the last little piece before it goes into the oven, you're gonna need to add some eggs. So, slightly beaten, 2 eggs should do it. You can do as many as 3. Try your best to make sure that you stir these eggs in really well, because if not, they will cook on the top of your dressing, and you don't want that. Sometimes they do anyway, and I just go with it. As long as they're cooked, you have nothing to worry about. I'm going to put it in my 9x13 that I have greased and ready. And I'm going to cook this for 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how long it takes for the moisture to dry out a little bit. You don't want to overcook it. And I'll show you how to test it to see when I bring it out. 30 to 45 minutes. You don't want to overcook because you don't want it too dry, but you don't want it too wet. Okay, y'all, so this is the finished product. I think I let it stay in a little bit over 35 minutes, so it's probably right at 45. But you can see where it's still moist, but the broth kind of cooked down out of it. To me, this is perfect. It's perfect consistency, and it's very lightly toasted on top. Perfect consistency. You can put your spoon in it, and it's still, it's not firm, but it's not too soft. It's somewhere in the middle. This is perfect, and it's going to taste really great. But it's really easy. I know that a lot of people are very intimidated by this, but southern dressing, the best. I would take it over stuffing any day, but I am from the South, and it is a southern thing, I feel, in my opinion. But hopefully you glean some knowledge from this, and don't be afraid to try. All right, I'll see y'all next time.